Hello and shalom, everyone from Covenant Calendar Club. We're so glad that you're here. And for those of you that are going to be viewing us on YouTube, we want to give you a nice warm welcome and a shout out to just say, hello.
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 Hello, everyone. We pray that you are having a blessed day and that you will continue to be blessed as you listen to this teaching that we're about to receive. We've already prayed. We're prayed up. We're ready to go. And so with that, we're just going to go ahead and turn our screen over to Charlene and Tim for this week's Covenant Calendar Club.
But we're happy that you're here. We're going to get started. We have about 79 slides tonight. Please write down your questions for the slide numbers. We will not be stopping. We'll barrel right straight through. Okay, so here is the question. Everybody wants to know the truth about the moon. Oh, the moon. That's what we've been waiting for on this whole calendar series. And it is part 5 tonight. And I'm calling this little part Yahuah's month. Oh, Yahuah's month. And we have a question, just like we usually do. And here's the question. Oh, Kadesh, which is 2320 in the Hebrew numbering system. This is the question. Put it in the back of your mind. Shall we trust your definition in comparison to Moses and Torah? I am talking about the definition found in the Strong's Concordance. Shall we trust what we find there or not? We're going to get started. There's many quotes that we would like to give you. We'll probably do some of those at the very end of our complete presentation, but I want you to look at this one. Among the ancient Israelites, as among the Greeks, the day was reckoned from sunset to sunset. This was the custom also of the Gauls and the ancient Germans, and was probably connected originally with the cult of the moon. There is, however, evidence that this was not the custom at all times. This is only one little itsy-bitsy quote of many secular historical quotes that are coming out all over the place, that in the ancient times, sunset was not the norm. But the keys of the kingdom for how to find calendar seems to have been lost. It was in the bride's ketubah, way back there with the covenant of the day and the covenant of the night, but somehow the bride had lost that covenant. Matthew 23:13, I know you know these words from Yahushua. They are very strong words. But woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! You shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. For you neither go in yourselves, neither do you suffer, yet them ye are entering to go in. He's saying you are going to be locked out. And before I go any further on this, Tim has something very special to say that's going to affect this whole calendar study. And I don't want to forget about him. I'm just going to let him pop in right now with his scripture. I think it was from Isaiah.
Yeah, it is. Thank you, Charlene. I just want to read a very pertinent selection of verses right now from Isaiah 14. And it's Isaiah 14, verses 13 and 14. This verse applies very directly to our study tonight, very directly. And I'm going to read it now. For you have said in your heart, let me go up to the Shemayim. Let me raise my throne above the stars of El. And let me sit in the mount of meeting on the sides of the north. Let me go up above the heights of the clouds. Let me be like the Most High. The great deceiver has here declared that he is going to be in control of the Moedim. That is his full intent. And that is his desire, and that is what he has been working on for the last 6,000 years. He fully intends, if at all possible, to be in control of the Moedim. Now, How is he going to do that? On this slide here, we see keys to the kingdom. When you open a door, when you go into a building, when you go into a room, what do you need first? You need the keys to get into the building. You need the keys to enter into the room. That key has been removed. Who removed it? How did they remove it? Why did they remove it? What you're going to see tonight is how it was removed. The very, very subtle, insidious evil that has caused the keys of the kingdom to be removed. But Yahushua promised us that all things that are hidden will be revealed. Tonight you're going to see something that's going to be revealed, and it causes me to shake in my shoes, quite literally. This is an incredible study, and I hope everybody pays really, really close attention to what it says. And Charlene, I think you've done an incredible job of putting this together. Thank you, and let's continue.
Okay, so I just want to remind you, basically there's going to be a lot of things in this PowerPoint that you already know, but I need to write them down and get them to you and put them in some kind of an order. But the enemy, which happens to be Satan himself, he's not the only one. He's got partners in crime. And this is including the beast and all of her partners as well. So just hang on. Here we go. What have we learned so far about the moon? We have basically learned here in the last couple sessions that 3391, Yarak, and 3394, Yarek, that's how you say it. One is a verb, one is a noun, and they're both related to the moon. 3391 is our cycles, the lunation cycles of the moon, and 3394 is the literal moon in the sky. And we need to have both of these to work together because you can't have really much of a sentence with just a noun, and you don't have much of a sentence with only a verb. You have nothing. So we need to have these two working together. So we've learned that. And what lessons are we going to learn in this presentation today? Well, there's also some comparisons between another two words. I'm going to be using the word numbers a lot because I want you to remember these numbers. If you remember them, you can find them in your Hebrew dictionaries. 2320 is Kodesh, and 2318 is Kadash, and it is the primitive root for Kodesh. One is a noun and one is a verb. So another question, of which we always have lots of questions, are Kodesh and Kadash synonyms for Yarek and Yarak? That is the question. So we have a little bit of review. We have a little bit of squiggly background noise from somebody.
Hold on just a second. Let's try and take care of that background noise before we go any further. Let's see. I'm looking for unmuted mics here. I don't see any. I don't hear it now.
Okay.
I just saw one.
Well, we'll try this. We'll try it again then. We have a few review slides here, and dear people, I'm putting these review slides in so that you get this. That by the time we're done with the moon studies, you will know this. When you hear these numbers and these names and these definitions, you are going to know it. So we have our Hebrew number 3394. And the part of speech that it was picking up was the noun or the literal moon in the sky. 3391, I think you all remember, this is picking up the verb or the action part of speech. This is the lunation cycle or the lunation phases of the moon. Need a noun and a verb to work together. 3842, 3 listings we found in the Strong's Concordance, Labana. This is talking about the adjective or the color of the moon. 7720 only had one listing in the Strongs. Remember, we found 3, I think it was, in Englishman's, Saharan. This is a simile. It was a comparison of something that looked like the moon, whether it was a full round moon or a crescent moon. Lots of the animals had pendants around their neck with crescent moons in honor of worshiping the pagan moon god. And 2320 is where we're going to start tonight to break open this. Basically, it actually is the noun, but working together with the 2318, we have another verb with a repetition. And I should change that because we're working here with a noun and a verb. And the same question as we've always had before, are there really 2 verbs and 2 nouns for one literal moon? And if there is, why would Yahuah do that? And if there isn't, why does it look like there is? Well, that's your review, cheat sheet. So it's now time to examine this Hebrew word 2320, Kodesh, from the Strong's Concordance. We've been working from there mostly. And this is basically a calendar study, and you might need a good boot to get through it. But anyway, I want you to be prepared for some surprises because I was surprised as well. And we're going to start right in with taking a closer look at 2320 Kodesh. And question mark, is this got anything to do with the moon? Is this a noun that aligns to a repetitive occurrence? And the references that are found in the Strongs, there are 20. And in Englishman's, well, we're going to find out how many are in the Englishman's. Is this particular word another noun or is it another verb? Which one will it be? And we also want to know, does Kodesh have a renewal? Just like the moon phases have renewals, does Kodesh have a renewal? Sorry, not removal, renewal. We're going to go back to this review so that we can work up to the 2320. In the Strongs, we had 26 listings for 3394, Yahuah. Someone's got to help me on that. I ask every single time. But anyway, in the Englishman's Concordance, we went through every listing and it had only 26 listings. And they were all exactly the same verses. Not one of them had anything to do with commencing the month with the moon. There was 3 listings in Genesis and Deuteronomy, and they had nothing to do with linking up with the month. Then we looked at 3391. There was 2 listings in the Strong's Concordance, just 2. But when we broke open the Englishman's, we found there was 13 listings, but 11 of them were using the word month, not moon. So we looked at all of those, and not one of those 11 had a single thing to do with starting the month with a moon phase. 3391 is listed 1 time in Torah, in Deuteronomy, but it was to do with the ordinances of the agricultural harvest, which we found out really is the job description of the moon. We looked very quickly and briefly at 3842 in the Strongs for Labana. It had 3 listings. This is the color of the moon, and the Englishman's had exactly the same 3 verses, telling us very, very nicely with all of those numbers that we went through, this number after number, and it all came back to white. Color of the moon is whiteness. Then 7720. The Strongs had only 1 listing for this in the Old Testament for Saharan, but in the Englishman's we found 3 listings, and basically neither one of these listings for the comparison of something to the moon had nothing to do with when the month begins. And of course the color of the moon has nothing to do with that either. So that was our review. Tonight we're going to break open the beginning part of the 20 listings for Kodesh. We won't look at any of the verses tonight, but first thing we need to do is to break open the definition of Kodesh. right there. That's the block. So in total, in Strong's, we have 52 references for the word moon or moons. If you look it up in your Strong's, these are the 20 listings that you're going to find. That's those 5 numbers right there. So the question is, can we expect to find about 20 listings in the Englishman's Concordance? So you can't break the study open without using an Englishman's. So remember, we had 26 and 26 here for 3394. For 3391, we had 2, and then 13 listings in the Englishman's. Well, it wasn't like too far out. For 3842, it was exactly the same 3 listings. We didn't have any problems with that. And for 7720, we had 2 extra listings. It wasn't any problem. And so I wasn't too concerned about that. But friends, when I broke open the Englishman's for 2320, this is what I found. 283 matches, all linking to Kodesh. This set has 263 extra listings translated as month, and only 20 of those matches, which is 7%, are translated as moon or moons. And friends, when I looked at this, that's where my red flags went up. I thought, what is going on here? So the concordant summary for the moon month is, altogether, we do not have only 52 references for the moon. We now have 328 references that we have to search out. And out of these 328, 54 of them are talking about moon or moons, and 274 in the verses, it's not 274 verses, but 274 matches or hits or occurrences are using the word month or months. And this is where your study needs to begin. And to me, there seemed to be a huge problem. So we just have a couple of facts for the words moon and moons. When you're cross-checking the 5 Hebrew numbers through the Englishman's Concordance, 328 scripture references are found, and 276 occurrences are actually translated as month, not moon, and that's 84%. Now they do say majority isn't always right, but in this case I needed to check it out, make sure it wasn't right, or it is. I didn't really know. So an investigation of this situation is absolutely imperative. Here we go with some more questions. Are these 20 verses that are listed as 2320 in the Strong's, are they translated correctly using the word moons, or did something else happen? Do these 20 verses actually verify beyond a shadow of any doubt that the biblical month begins with any phase of the moon? And I actually had another question too, and that was, has somebody tampered with these scriptures? I didn't really know. So in order to find out, you have to go and do some searching. When searching the word...
How do you stop?
Somebody has their mic on. If they would just mute it for me, that would be helpful. When searching the word moon in the Strong's, the word moon is connected to 2320. That's Kodesh 20 times. You already know that. Don't ever forget it. But when you search 2320 in the Englishman's Concordance, the month is used 263 times instead of the word moon. And this is indeed confusion, and I feel that there needs to be an answer to this, and we should be able to find an answer if we do a proper study from cover to cover, here a little, there a little, line upon line, precept upon precept. That's an Isaiah principle for any study that you do in Scripture. So, does 2320 have the definition of new moon or just moon, or is the definition month? And whose month? Is it Yahuah's month that is delegated for the worship statutes, or is it Yahuah's month that is delegated for the agricultural month that the moon has as a mandate? That's what we're looking for. So I'd like you to stay alert. We're going to proceed with caution. These are some points that I would like you to tuck away as we go through this PowerPoint. So far, we've completed only part of the 2320 definition from Strong's. And as we work through every part of this definition, and I mean every part, we are going to dissect it. We need to remember that James Strong is not perfect, and he definitely can lay definitions with overtones of Jewish Talmud traditions for worship. We already found this when we looked at the definitions that he had for evening and for morning, and for the word day or yom. He had the definitions for evening and morning absolutely perfect, but when he went in to explain when the day begins, instead of saying at dawn and at dusk, remember what he said? Sunset to sunset. So he had some problems. So he's not perfect, but that's okay. We aren't either. 2320 is one of these cases where we have to be very mindful of many different aspects and twists before we can discern the correct definition. We're going to go slow. We're going to go very carefully. I would like you to pay attention to what is about to be revealed, as 2320 Kodesh is going to expose a very serious problem that has to do with the new moon. All right, here we go. For Yahuah's moon month, remember he has a moon month, we found that 3394 is the noun for moon, and 3391 is the verb, the action part for the moon, and it is agriculturally related. This is part of the ordinances of the moon that has been given to bless the earth and mankind, and we are very, very thankful for that. But will Yahuah's creation festal month also have a noun and verb components? We'll answer that question at the end. That's what we're looking for, because he has a special day of the month where everything starts for us to learn how to count out the feasts and festivals. And I'm saying it is about time. Everyone, it's about time that 2320 Kodesh is completely understood according to Moses and the Torah guidelines, and not according to what you read in man's books. There are some statistics for 2320. Remember, the total usage was 276 times. In the Strong's, it does it this way. It has month for 254 times. That is 92% for 2320. Strong's has new moon listed 20 times, and that is 8% of your Old Testament scriptures. And then it uses the word monthly one time as 2320. We're going to break that open in a future study. We'll just touch on it tonight a tiny bit. And there's another reference. And I'm sorry, everyone, I didn't even go to find it because you have to go through 285 verses. I didn't bother to look at that one other. We're going to go through about 8 of these, investigating 2320, and this is number 1. Will we find moon or month for 2320? Well, let's break open this definition. It starts out this way. Kodesh, and the very first thing that you are going to read is from 2318. And before I go any further on this definition, we're going to stop right here and we're going to look at 2318. The reason why is because I don't want to get an idea into my head until I've checked out this primitive root. It's Kadash. It says to be new. I went to the Strong's Concordance book. I opened the book and I noticed that these words, be new, are in italics. I already went through this with you on a former study, that in Strong's, he tells you specifically that when anything is in italics, he has added it in. So this has been added in. Be new. Causatively to rebuild. It was in italics. So I'm assuming that he's telling the truth, that he added in this word. Now, when it says King James Version, this is telling you that these are other words that the King James can use for 2318. One of them is renew and repair, okay? So that is the definition for 2318. Basically, renew. It comes first before repair. Take note of that as well. All right. The primitive root is telling us that 2318, kadosh, is the action word or the verb component for something that's going to be renewed. It is the action word. The words repetitive occurrence, and I've chosen that little phrase, repetitive occurrence, would be a summary of this action. So, will 2320 define the noun component so that we can link it up with an action word? Let's look and see. We're investigating. We're on number 2. A decision is going to have to be made to determine the correct meaning of Kodesh. And remember, so far we have 2320. It says it's from 2318, this primitive root, and I'm leaving it there. We're going to be doing this a couple of times. It's in square brackets that I'm adding this in for you just so that I don't have to say it every time, but that is what the definition is for 2318. And then it goes on to say this. Oh, well, let's have a note first. So far, there is nothing in the root definition of 2318 to bring in the idea that 2320 means only the new moon. There is nothing there, absolutely nothing. And then after you look at that definition, Strong's goes on to say this. After he says from 2318, he says this, the new moon. And new was in italics. And I have a feeling he did that because there are people that are now doing conjunction of the moon. There are many that are following the full moon to start their moon months, and probably every phase in between. So this word new could have full moon, it could have conjunction, but he put in new. But the Strong's 2320 definition is not completed yet. We have a little ways to go. And there is some investigating to do around this new moon piece of information before we go any further. Let's look at number 3 of this investigation. I want you to note very carefully. The definitive parts of 2320 are going to be dealt with piece by piece for a full understanding of Kodesh. I have to do it that way. It's going to be slow, but let's get started. So we've got Kodesh from 2318. There is the definition for 2318 primitive root. And then the definition goes on to read like this. The new moon, by implication, a month, monthly, new moon. And this time, new moon is not in italics, but in this definition, what does your eye pick up first? I wish you all had your mics on because I'm pretty sure you'd give me the right answer. When we're investigating Kodesh, we need to pay attention. When we read this part of the 23 definition, I wonder why is it that our eyes are attracted to the new moon words first? They're right there. It starts it with new moon, and then it says by implication a month, and it ends it with new moon. So the very first thing you hear is new moon, and the very last thing you hear is new moon, and no wonder you're attracted to the moon. Why have we believed this? That Kodesh is attached or connected to moon, new moon, whatever, no matter what. Well, it's because we're trained. that 2320 automatically means new moon, and especially the sighted moon, the one that you look, that's kind of the most popular one. We've been trained, we've been conditioned from very, very good feast-keeping teachers. We've had some excellent, excellent teachers. So what do? We just say, oh, must be right. And we're all running out to find the crescent moon, to find the beginning of the month. But remember, Strong's in 2320, he says this. He says from 2318, then he goes on to say the new moon. And the question has to be posed of why did Strong's choose to insert the words the new moon first after the root word definition when 2318 says nothing about a new moon? I would like to ask him that question, where he got that idea from. Or did Mr. Strong just follow the wording of the 1611 King James Version translation, paying no attention to the root definition of 2318? And just in case some of you don't know, the Strong's Concordance was actually published in 1890, 279 years after the 1611 King James Version was published, and I believe he passed away in 1894. So I am quite certain that he probably spent his whole life working on this concordance, which was a lot of work. Remember, he's not always perfect. Another question, how can the new moon receive first and last mention in 2320 Kodesh's definition when the scriptures refer to the moon only 8% of the time and they refer to the month 92% of the time? And I would have to say, well, Houston, we've got a problem here. There is something not right. But why didn't Strong say this? Because he had some options. He was writing the book. Why didn't he say 2320 Kodesh is from 3394, and that means the literal moon? Or why didn't Strong say this? 2320 Kodesh, that's from 3391, which is listed as, first, it says a lunation cycle. There was 2 moon scriptures for that. And second, it was listed as a lunar month, and we found 11 month scriptures for that definition. But you know what? Either choice of 3394 or 3391 would have been closer to the definition of new moon than 2318 is ever going to be. So why didn't he choose those 2 numbers? Or did he have a choice? Well, some answers could be, and I want you to pay attention to this slide. The primitive root of 2320 Kodesh is not 3394, and it's not 3391. Those are not primitive roots for Kodesh. 3394 and 3391, Yarek and Yorak, they are family words. They are close in number sequence. Remember, we went through all the number sequences and how this even links up with Jericho at 3504, which was a moon worshiping city. So Yorak and Jericho, they're all close in phonetics. These are all family words, and you'll find them grouped together under those Hebrew word numbers. But 2320 Kodesh and 2318 Kadash are not family words with 3394 or 3391, and they're not close in number, they're not close in phonetics. These 2 are about as far apart as the east is from the west. So that should settle that. Let's continue our investigation. Number 5. Now that we know the new moon is not part of 2318, and it only qualifies for 8% of the verses that use the 2320 definition, we can now move to the next challenge in the 2320 definition. which is the word, hang on, by implication. A month, monthly, new moon. And I'm putting in square brackets. Is this talking about a lunar month? Because he has a month, then he says monthly, then there's that new moon again. No italics on that last one. Implication is a huge word that we need to look at. We're going to do it right now. By implication, what in the world does that mean? We're going to look at the meaning of implication, and we're going to do a round of questions that need to have answers. This is in a little bit of a different format. Tim's going to be helping me with this. It was the only way I could figure out how to kind of present this information so that you could probably understand it. So let's get started. We've got 2 birdies. One was in school and one isn't. You can see one just graduated. And our little birdie with the red hat, he's got a question. He says to the graduate, what is the meaning of implication? I would sure like to know what that word means.
The meaning of implication is insinuation, inference, suggestion, and association.
I didn't really know that. But I have another question, Mr. Graduate. Is Strong saying that Kodesh means new moon? And is he implying that 2320 is a lunar month? Is that what Mr. Strong is saying?
It sounds like new moon is implied, but remember, month is used 92% of the times for H2320, and new moon is only 8%. That's a pretty big difference.
Yeah. Okay. I have another question. If 3394 and 3391 have their own lunar month, why does 2320 and 2318 have to be used again to describe the exact same lunar month? Like, I don't understand.
I don't know. Maybe someone doesn't know the Creator has another month that does not start with a moon. Is our Creator actually being redundant, supplying duplicate words for a lunar topic which has already been covered in great detail? Remember, the study on the moon is very exhaustive and specific. It leaves no room for the moon to ever be in command of the creation festival months.
Oh, I guess that was all those reviews that we done. We've been working on those moon words for quite a few weeks now, so I guess I have to remember that. But you know what? I hear there are 20 verses in the Old Testament that should be translated as new month instead of new moon. Is that right?
I have seen those verses. Did you know these verses are bundled with the Creator's appointed worship times?
But those verses use the term new moons as if it's the same as the Creator's appointed worship times for new months. I know they do. I've read them.
I fully recognize this problem, yet no one will admit it. I strongly suspect someone has been tampering with the instructions of how the definition for 2320 was to be written. And the reason we say that is because normally when their definitions are written down, the definition that takes the most prominent position or that is used most, that comes first, not the one that is used the least be first. And somehow, for some reason, these definitions for Kodesh, the rules have been set aside, and instead the lowest percentage of meaning or definition has somehow been placed at the primary position. It's an opposite to what the rules are for dictionaries and for lexicons, and I wonder why. who was it that changed this format? What was their agenda and who did it?
And that's exactly why I had some red flags when I was doing this study. I couldn't figure it out either. But you know what, Mr. Graduate, I still have some questions. What? You have got to be kidding. Who would ever do something like that? And how can we know for sure? Like, are you really sure about what you just told me?
I know this may be a shock to you, but there's no kidding. The only way we can know for sure is to go back to Moshe and the Torah. We must look at the words, search out the words and their meanings, and put them in charts and figure out exactly if the words apply to what the scriptures are telling us.
Moses? Did you say Moses?
Yes, Moses. He never once used 2320 Chodesh to mean a new moon month. Everything has to go back to Torah, remember? And when I say he never once used 2320 Chodesh to mean a new month, there is ample proof of this coming up in a future study.
Oh, I've heard about that, Tim. But oh yeah, I remember now. Torah. I got it. Like I got to remember that. Okay. But hey, wait, Mr. Graduate. Maybe the problem word really is implication, like we started out with that. So maybe implication really is the problem word?
That's right. I agree. The word implication leads one down a very muddy path. Moses never implies anything. He's very specific. Listen to this.
Oh, I will listen to it, Mr. Graduate, but you know what? I have to agree. Moses doesn't do anything muddy, but you're saying implication goes down a muddy path? Okay, let's look and see what this is. Oh, it's a warning sign for a muddy path. Oh no, it says, someone has fully adjusted the 2320 Kodesh definition to suit their own religious preference of new moon months. This is precisely why there is no alignment with Moses and Torah? That's really something. Oh, well, we should take a look. Well, we've looked at the Strongs, but maybe we should look around at some other sources and see what they say. Well, what about Brown, Driver, and Briggs? Does their definition seem somewhat deceiving? And I have it here right from the program. You can see it's Brown, Driver, Briggs Lexicon, and it says Kodesh. It says, look there, everybody, the new moon, month and monthly, and then it says first day of the month, the lunar month. I went, oh my goodness. And I want you to note that in Brown, Driver's Briggs, the reader is not even referred back to the original root of 2318. So the new moon is holding first position, and it's acting as the primary definition of Kodesh. These three men are promoting the new moon as the month commencement for Yahuah's calendar. Now we're talking about the month for the festal month, not just any old month. And I'm saying, what would Moses say? We just said everything has to go back to Moses. Well, let's look at Gesenius. What about him? What does he say? I took this off of the Blue Letter Bible, and I don't know if you're seeing something that I'm seeing, but now we don't have just a few words. Gesenius has a whole bunch of extra words, and let's just go through it. He does tell you that is Kodesh. It's from 2318. And somebody has their microphone open, please. Could you shut it off for me? Thank you. Anyway, he goes on to say, the new moon, or Gesenius, the day of the new moon, the calends of a lunar month, which was a festival of the ancient Hebrews, and he's giving you some references here. And he says on the third kalends, the third new moon, and the first and the third lunar month. And he's got some extra information. Now shall a new moon devour them. They shall be destroyed at the time of the new moon. The second definition is a lunar month beginning at the new moon. And he's got some scriptures here. And then finally, Hodesh. And you can see this is from 2320. That's Jasenius. Now we don't have just a few words, like maybe 20, but a whole bunch of words.
Charlene?
Yes.
Yes, I would like to bring attention to point number 2. It says a lunar month beginning at the new moon, and the reference is Genesis 8:5. That has to do with the flood. I'm very, very sad when I saw this, because if Jasenius had have charted out the month exactly to the way the documentation is in the scriptures, he would know that there's not a possibility in any way, shape, or form of any lunar month being anywhere connected to the flood account. That is something that he has simply taken for granted from former information, and he has not checked it out, and yet he has written it in here, and we accept it.
Okay, so then that's telling me he didn't really pay attention to Moses and the Torah. I think that's what happened there. But at least he does tell you to go back to 23:18. But the new moon in his writing retains its first position, acting as the primary definition of Kodesh. He's doing the very same thing that Brown Driver Briggs did. Through even more words, he has the new moon still in charge of the festival month. I would just like to
Rick Decker, your mic is on. Could you please shut your mic off? Rick Decker, do you hear us? Shut your mic off, please.
Okay. I thought it was off. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is that off
Yes,
now?
thank you. No, you're still there.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm getting used to this. I apologize. I really just wanted to listen in. I'm messing everything up for you. I apologize.
Not a problem. We're happy to have you.
Yes. Anyway, we're finding a lot more words here to solidify that the new moon is in charge of the month. And again, the question is, what would Moses say? Well, Jasenius, I don't think that you did a good study on Moses and the Torah. Well, what about the theological word book of the Old Testament? And when I went and looked at this one, I don't have all of it here because I couldn't get it all on the screen, but there are now over 2,000 words that is given as a description here to cement that the new moon is in charge of every new month. And I highlighted one part of it, and I hope you can read it. I will read it to you. Although this word properly is talking about Kodesh, means new moon, it is commonly used as an equivalent to our word month, because the month began with the thin crescent of the new moon when it was first visible at sunset. And if any of you have access to this, you can read all 2,000 words for yourself. And I'm just going, wow, like everybody's getting on board. Like, how do you figure this out? Well, I went back and I said, what would Moses say?
Charlene?
These are the words of...
Charlene?
Yes.
I would like to point out in that same paragraph that you have highlighted, the very bottom sentence, it starts out, the month was considered to be 30 days. Note Genesis 7:11 and Genesis 8:3-4. Now read this next phrase. Unless the new moon was observed earlier. This is a very strange statement to me. So how could the month be 30 days? And then if there happened to be a new moon observed earlier, suddenly the month lost days? How can this be? This is a very classic case of having truth, but infusing twisted, convoluted man's message, which causes an untruth. This is not correct. Thank you.
Absolutely. You know, we're trying to keep this study tonight to within a reasonable amount of time, but I do have to say, everyone, with what I found this week, this could have been a 3-hour study. And so I'm asking you not to take my word for it, not to take what you see here, but go and dig for yourself and find out what's going on, because there's way more to this than what I can present tonight. I just want to give you an overview of what is happening here with this 2320 definition. And when I studied this out 2 years ago, right at this time in 2016, I did not have enough understanding, I did not have enough foundation under me to understand what was going on here. So this is a huge adjustment tonight. Yes, what would Moses say? And everyone, you should be asking that question. What does he say? When you're using 3394, he would say, Yarek and Yorok 3391. Moses says there are no instructions in Torah, and I'm going to say covenant Torah, the pages between Genesis 1 to Exodus 24:11. He says there's no instructions in Torah for any phase of the moon to begin Yahuah's creation and festal months. It is not there. Moses says 2320 Kodesh is never used in Torah to align with the beginning of the moon month. He says the new moon portion inserted into the 2320 definition is going to be based on pagan traditions. I know if Moses was here today, that is exactly what he would tell you. And he would say this is in a direct defiance of my instructions before I die. In Deuteronomy 18:9, he says, and this is not the only place he says this, go check out how many times, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations. Now tonight, we're looking at moon worship specifically, but there was many other abominations as well. And he also wrote this in Deuteronomy 31:29, for I know that after my death you will utterly corrupt yourselves, you will turn aside from the way which I have commanded you, and evil will befall you in the latter days, that's our day as well, because you will do evil in the sight of Yahuah to provoke him to anger through the work of your hands, and that would be building moon idols and sun idols, and we're going to find out in a future study that that was exactly what was happening at the roots of Yahuah's family.
Charlene?
Very, yes.
Yes, I'd like to emphasize again on point number 2, 2320 Chodesh is never used in Torah to align with the beginning of the moon month. This is not an idle statement. This is not something that is just printed there because it sounds good and that's what we think it could be. That statement there, number 2 statement, is proven solidly, it's backed solidly, and it has come from a lot of research. An upcoming PowerPoint in the future is going to go over this and make this as solid as you can possibly imagine. This is a fact, according to what is stated in the scriptures.
Tim, do you think also it would be a good time just to clarify that there's a huge difference between the word month and moon? I mean, it's right there in front of our face, but I don't know that everybody is seeing that those are 2 completely different words. Month is month and moon is moon.
Yes, there's a great difference, and we can go into that on another study.
And we've actually touched on that before. So if we have anybody here that's new tonight, you really need to go back and look at the first 4 presentations on the moon, because this is all a foundational workup. Unfortunately, we have new people coming because they're hearing this stuff for the first time, and that's why I say some of you might shoot me tonight. I hope you don't. I hope you give us a chance. But the thing is, these studies are given in a certain order for a very specific reason, and to watch them out of order, that is not good for you, and it's not good for the study. So
Charlene,
please have a
can I just
yes.
ask a quick question? On that
very
last, can you hear me?
quickly.
On
Yes.
that last slide where you referred to Deuteronomy 18:9, we also know that there are other verses in Deuteronomy that Moses says don't worship the moon. Are those definitions of moon completely different words than the Kodesh word?
Yes. It's
Okay.
I'm glad to hear a yes from the audience, from Mario, because you've learned your lessons well. In Deuteronomy 4, chapter 4, and also chapter 17, there's 2 commands. We've done this already in a previous lesson. 2 commands where Moses says, do not look to the sun, the moon, the stars, any of the heavenly hosts, but specifically moon. And that moon is linked to 3394. It is the literal moon in the sky. Those are 2 references. And by the way, everybody, Tanya is the one that alerted us to the fact that those 2 commands that Moses gave are not in the 613. They conveniently left them out. And so whoever goes by the 613, you can't pronounce judgment on them because commands are not there. Good question. Let's go to number 6 of investigating Kodesh. I'm going to step out of the box on this one. In order for 2320's definition to be in alignment with Moses and Torah, 2320 should read like this. It should still say from 2318, and it can say to be new, and it can say to rebuild. There's nothing wrong with that. But then it should say a month. It could say renew monthly. That's what it would need to say to come into complete alignment with Moses and Torah. But for utmost consideration, we need to look at this. The new moon does not belong in the Kodesh definition. That is precisely why it needs to be taken out. And remember, it is there 2 times, not just once. It's a deception. Oh, we've got Mr. Graduate back. Good enough. I have another question. I can't remember why we have to know all of this stuff.
Very good question. Because in the future lessons, we will be dealing with 20 verses using 2320 Chodesh to mean new moons.
20 verses.
Therefore, we need to be very clear on the Hebrew definition according to what Yahuah has preserved in the Torah.
Oh, so that kind of sounds serious to me. That's why we have to know all this stuff. Okay, should we keep going? I guess we should. There is no implied month. That also means that 2320 never refers to the rebuilding of any new moon month. The month that is to be understood as being renewed is Yahuah's creation festal month, from the first day of creation. That is the one we're talking about. But you know, there's always a but. And there is with this one too. It's going to be this way. I'll read it again. The month that is to be understood as being renewed is Yahuah's creation festal month, from the first day of creation, unless there is a qualifier. Now, we talked about qualifiers quite a long time ago. I'm not sure if you remember. We were telling you how important it was. We're going to be coming back to this. The new moon can also be a new month in the scriptures only when there is a qualifier in the context to indicate that there is a pagan element of worship according to the pagan new moon. Now that's a mouthful. Here's an example, and we're not going to go into this in depth tonight. We will be doing these in future lessons. I'll just give you 4 examples tonight. Isaiah 47:13, it says the monthly prognosticators, that is 2320. When you saw monthly on that slide that said 1 times, this is the verse, Isaiah 47:13. This was the monthly prognosticators of Babylon. They were the ones that wanted to know the ancient pseudoscience of astrology of the new moons. The Babylonian stargazers carefully studied the heavens for omens or for signs of coming events, which of course included the phases of the moon. I'm sure every phase of the moon meant something, and probably if it was in conjunction with this star or that star, or who knows what was going on. So there has to be a qualifier in there to tell you that this 2320 is linking to something that's pagan. There are scriptures with qualifiers that translate 2320 as new moons instead of new months. We are going to look at Isaiah 1:13 and 14, Hosea 2:11, and Amos 8:5 in a future study. But just to let you know tonight, because I'm preparing you for what's coming, I don't know if it'll be in the next lesson or not, but in each case, Yahuah's apostate people in these 3 scriptures, not the Isaiah one, the other one, the Isaiah 47, in these 3 scriptures, Yahuah's people are running after pagan new moons and worship practices instead of staying true to Yahuah's statutes as written in Torah. We will look at this in depth in a future lesson. The context of each verse has the qualifier, making it very clear what was happening at this point in time in history. And friends, we didn't know this when we started out. We've learned this all the hard way by looking and looking and looking at what is going on. It takes time. Number 7 of investigating 2320 Kodesh. 2320 always comes from the root word 2318, and it simply means to renew. And that is exactly what every creation and festival month does. It renews. There is nothing in 2318 that implies the definition refers to the new moon month, or that the new moon month should have first place in the 2320 definition with only 8% usage. In fact, the usage for new moon in 2320, everyone, it should be 0%. 0, not even 8. I would just like to show you this calendar. I chose October 2016 because it shows it so nicely. The August 2018 moon calendar didn't show it as nicely as this one does. But in October of 2016, Yahuah's agricultural lunar month actually was cited on October 1. Now that's October 1 on the Roman calendar. That's not the first day of the month for Yahuah's calendar. I should have seen what that one was, but I didn't. But that was the new moon, and it took to October 30th for there to be another renewal. But look at the time, 1240. 1240. That isn't a whole day. That's your 29 and a half days. This is the synodic lunar cycle that they stretch to 29 and a half days. Remember, we talked about a sidereal month of the moon that's only 27.3 days long, and the synodic lunar cycle, they stretched it so that the moon is going to align with the sun and not the stars. In order to do that, you have to stretch it 2.2 days to get to 29 and a half days. So it's so close, it snugs up to a 30-day month. Just remember that. But when you're rebuilding Yahuah's creation festal month, we have to think a little bit differently. Don't forget, neither 3394 or 3391, those words that belong to moon in the lunar cycle, neither one of them qualifies for Yahuah's creation festal month. But, you know, there's always a but. Yahuah's 30-day creation festival month has 2320 Kodesh as the noun, that's the month, and 2318 as the verb. When the 30th day ends. Starts here, you count 30 days, and day 1, that's the renewal of Yahuah's creation festal month. So for his moon month, we found these two things. First of all, it's got a moon component, a noun, and a verb component. It's agriculturally related as one of the ordinances of the moon. And we do find a noun and a verb in Yahuah's calendar as well. But just where? How does this work? We just need to put a proper placement of these definitions on a calendar. And I'm just saying that this is right here. This is the very first day in creation. This is Genesis 1's very first day. And right there you have 2320 Kodesh. This is where the first day of the second month would be. That's Kadash. That is your renewal. So here's your noun for month. This is your creation month. And there's the verb. That's the renewal of the creation month. Then you go along, and on day 4, this is where you have your moon month, 3394, and it renews on the end of the 30th day. It renews on day 4 of the second month. There's your rebuilding. So for the moon month, we have the noun right here, and the verb, the action, is going to come in the second month. That's how these definitions place. It's a very important slide. Has a lot of information right there. So the idea that month has to mean moon, because the words are that we've been trained to hear and connect to the moon are rebuild, renew, and repair. That is a traditional teaching that has been handed down to us from the moon gazers. And who would adopt such a pagan teaching except the apostate Jewish rabbi moon gazers themselves? And this is what they taught the people. They removed the keys to understanding Yahuah's calendar. And many in the world are wondering right after that. We're going to do this history in upcoming lessons. We're looking at number 8 for these corrected statistics for 2320. We had a slide like this already. The King James Version translation count for 2320, it has a total usage of 276 times, and 2320 should be found in the King James in the following manner. It should be found as month 274 times, that's 100%. And for 2320, new moon should be 0%. And by the way, all of these scriptures that list the new moon as the new month, they're all non-Torah scriptures, every last one of them. Then you have monthly as one times, that's that Isaiah 47:13 verse, and somebody go look up the one that's the another. I did not have time to do it, but it was only one. But we need to come back to James Strong and 2320. He lived from 1822 to 1894. Remember, his concordance was published in 1890. And I thought about this. I'm thinking, why did he do what he did? Well, James Strong could not change the wording of the new moons in those 20 controversial verses that he found in the King James Version. But he didn't have to go and insert the words new moon into the 2320 Hebrew definition. He had a choice there. He didn't have to do that. He couldn't change what the 1611 translators had done, but he could have fixed the mistake by giving the proper definitions for 2320. And just think of the consequences for this decision. And so I'm thinking, well, exactly who was James Strong? Like, who did he run with? Who were his buddies? And that's when I called him. And this was at 4 in the morning or whenever it was, 3 o'clock in the morning. And he sent me some information. The following information is from chapter 7, page 161. It's titled Strong Delusion, of a book named Hazardous Materials. It was published in 2008 by Dr. Gail Ripplinger, and I think she had an assistant. And you can download it. I downloaded it, and you can have it. This book has over 1,200 pages. But this is a summary that she has on one page, and I've taken it from her book, and this is a summary of James Strong and the Strong's Concordance. Tim told me that he has read a lot in this 1,200-page book, and he had to stop reading it. It is earth-shattering. So I'm going to uncover these points one by one. There's 8 of them. Strong was a member of the Westcott and Hort Revised Version Committee in 1881, and he worked in masterminding this corrupt version. I don't know if anybody has done any study on Westcott and Hort and what they have done to bring about this very wicked in translation or version. You need to study up. This will make your blood curdle. Strong was a member. Strong was also a member of the American Standard Version Committee that finally published in 1901. And it said that Jesus Christ was a creature, not the creator. And by the way, once the Revised Version came out in 1881, and it was quite a lot of work for them to even be able to get this version out. It was to debunk the King James Version. Now, the King James isn't perfect because the translators made some goof-ups. We're going to talk about that in a future lesson. But once the Revised Version came out, that opened the door for all kinds of versions to come out, to come against the King James. Number 3, on these committees, Strong joined Unitarians like Thayer, I'm sure you've heard of him, a child molester, Vaughn, followers of Luciferian Helena Blavatsky, and also Ginsburg and Schaff, and a horde of Bible critics. And there he's got S.R. Driver listed here, who we've already talked about, who together changed nearly 10,000 words of the text. This is who Strong is running. Yes.
I would like to point out, for those that don't know who Blavatsky is, she has been given the unofficial title as the Mother of the Occult. She is one of the founders, the base founding information sources for the occult, and one of the base instructors years ago. That's who she is.
Yes, and if you don't know who some of these people are, you really need to do some study. We have a lot of materials. Adam Weishaupt, he's part and parcel of all of this. There's so much going on here. It would probably take 75 hours to break it open, but we need to know our history. Number 4, Strong's Concordance definitions are often the very words of these corrupt versions. And now look at this, and also the Quran. I was shocked when I read that. Exactly who was Dr. James Strong? He also gathered his definitions from Gesenius's corrupt Hebrew lexicon. We looked at Gesenius already and what he did to 2320. Strong's work also accesses the corrupt lexicons of Little Scott, Thayer, Brown Driver Briggs, and as she's saying here, she's got a lot of extra information in her book, Hazardous Materials. Number 6, Strong's Greek text is not always that which underlies the King James Bible. And I am here to tell you that it's very difficult to study in the Greek, and this is probably the reason here. I'd much rather work with Hebrew, but when you work with the Greek, trust me, you've got to get it back to Hebrew, and you have to get it back to Moses and Torah, and I'm almost ready to say covenant Torah. Strong's various definitions may not give anywhere near a literal translation of the Greek. So friends, you are better off staying in the Hebrew. Get your information in the Hebrew first. And number 8, some of the latest editions of Strong's Concordance are not even Strong's original. His work's been tampered with, so now it's even worse. In the Greek and the Hebrew lexicons in the back section, they contain even more corrupt definitions from new version editors. In the main body of the concordance, which originally was correct, new editions omit important King James Bible usages of the word Jesus in order to match corrupt new versions. And of course, we know they're trying to out with the divine creator and in with Lucifer. We all know that. I hope we all know that. There's some final comments at this website, and I think that they're probably put up by the author. They say, James Strong, his corrupt Greek and Hebrew definitions pepper today's preaching as if his lexicon was the final and the 67th book of the Bible. His liberal definitions are used as quick and weak patches to fill a void in sermons, and I've heard this over and over. And then they go on to say in the final sentence, and this is the crux of this whole study, the space would be better filled by a laborious looking up of all the Bible's usages of a word. Friends, this is the complete foundation of any study, and I'm going to say especially for covenant calendar. You need to be looking in your Bible from cover to cover, here a little, there a little, line upon line, precept upon precept, and if you're coming across definitions, I don't care if it's Strong's, Brown Driver Briggs, or Thayer, or whoever it is, if it is not lining up with Moses and Torah, then you have a decision to make. And we're making the decision to go back to Moses. Any comments, Tim? Guess not.
No,
I'm
go ahead,
saying
Sharon.
birds of a feather flock together. It's not a verse in the Bible, but it's true that people will spend time with those most similar to themselves. Westcott and Hort, Blavatsky, Brown, Driver, Briggs, Gesenius, Schaff. These were Strong's buddies. And if anybody has the time to do an in-depth study on the history of these men, you might be a little bit surprised on what you find out. Now, a lot of them have done a lot of good work for us. But remember, we've got to be careful. We've got to proceed with caution before using the study tools of people that have another agenda. I am saying that there's another agenda out there for calendar to get us off base and away from Yahuah's calendar, which is going to sever the relationship that we are asked by him to come and join in and meet with him at his times. Where is this other agenda leading to? Well, the beast knows the first part of the agenda, that anything connected to the sun for the purposes of worship is to be shunned, including, the beast knows all of this stuff, including the day, Sunday, sacredness, or any other day besides the Sabbath day. The beast doesn't care, just as long as you're on Sunday. He doesn't care. Just get them onto Sunday. And you all know that Rome wants everybody to be Sunday worshipers. Rome wants the apostate daughters to come back. What about the hour? Rome knows that a sunset sacredness on the day before any Sabbath, and I'm talking about a weekly Sabbath or an annual Sabbath, they know that sunset sacredness is going to lead you down a different path. And it doesn't follow the instructions of the Book of the Covenant and the words that are engraved on the tables of stone. Rome knows that. Because if Rome doesn't know that, she doesn't know how to give you a counterfeit. Where's this agenda leading to? The beast wants her apostate daughters back. Well, there's two ways. The first one is through the sun path. Out of over 41,000 Christian Protestant denominations, the majority of them honor Sunday as their holy day of rest to their Creator. And I have Creator in a small c because it is not the Creator, it's their Creator. And I did not have time to research out of those 41,000 Christian Protestant denominations, what percentage would be Sabbath keeping. I did not have time. I finished this PowerPoint 2 minutes before I connected with you tonight. If these people that are honoring the sun path do not forsake Sunday and return to Yahuah's Sabbath, they are serving another master, whether they know it or not. That's part of the bride's work, is to get that message out to the world. And the result is they are worshiping the sun god Baal. We're going to show this in a future study. That's what this comes down to. And you know what, friends, we've tried to share this with Sunday keepers out here where we live. They won't hear it. They won't hear it. This is all about Luciferian worship. The beast knows the other part of the agenda as well. The beast knows that anything connected to the moon for the purposes of worship statutes includes the moon phase of every kind that is adored by Wiccans. They're already in the beast's hands. The beast knows that the day is important too. If you're following after a new moon day, any phase, conjunction, crescent, full moon, or anything in between, they know that that's connected to Luciferian worship. And what about these 12 or 13 months, the moon month? The beast knows that the moon month is a base for Luciferian worship because that month does not honor Yahuah's feasts and festivals. Those are festivals of somebody else. The beast wants her apostate daughters back. Doesn't matter if it's the sun path or the moon path. Let's look at the moon path. And I don't know what the percentage is. I didn't have time to check it out. But out of whatever percentage it is of the Saturday Sabbath keepers, most do not honor Yahuah's feasts and festivals. They are Saturday Sabbath keepers. And many that I've talked to, they don't want to hear a thing about feasts and festivals. They've been simply nailed to the cross. Thank you. We've got enough Sabbaths. We got 52 in a year to keep holy, and that's more. Enough. We just don't need to have 7 more. And I don't even know if you could figure out this percentage. But out of the percentage of feast of these Sabbath keepers that are feast keepers, and I don't know how to figure that out, most of them are honoring the moon month for their festival calculations. And you try to talk to some of these people about moving away from the month, you better have a nice way to do it.
Charlene?
Yes.
I just want to bring back Isaiah 14, where he said that, where Satan said that he will be in control of the Moedim. And this is exactly how he's doing it, is by the moon. He is controlling the timetable, he is controlling the schedule, he's controlling the appointed times. Only trouble is they are his appointed times, they are not Yahuah's appointed times. He claimed that in Isaiah 14, and he is carrying through with it. Thankfully to Yahuah, he will not last, it will end. And we are told that in Revelation 12:1, where the moon is under the feet in vanquished authority and utter defeat under Bethuelah's feet. Revelation 12:1.
Yes. Yeah. And I did go look at some pictures on the internet to illustrate this, and there are pictures there, but truly, people, I could not put them up. I could not show you those pictures because it's everything about the moon, everything. And the result of this is worship of the moon goddess, or Ashtoreth. We're going to break this open in great detail in lessons coming up. There is worship of a moon goddess and worship of the sun god. Let's just go back a little bit. What about the change of the calendar so that Sunday was the first day of the week? Do you remember that lesson that we did? I think it was about the equinox, when Rome actually started out with the first day of the week as Saturn's day. Do you remember that? And Saturn had first place, and Sunday was in second place, and the third day was Luna's day, Luna, moon day or Monday. And then there was a change in Rome's calendar, and they decided to move Sunday to the first day of the week. And they did. They bumped Sunday up to the first day of the week, and Saturn, or Saturday, went to the seventh day. But what happened was the moon stayed in its position. None of these other moon gods on their days moved their position. Moon went into the second position instead of the third. And that is something that you need to remember right now, okay? Now, what if there is a change of the calendar so that Sunday becomes the seventh day of the week when the calendars are printed? And I know there's lots of calendars in Europe that are doing this right now. And if you look closely at this calendar, you'll see that they've got Monday listed as the first day of the week. What if that becomes kind of a world calendar order, which could be around the corner? Is there a connection to Moon Day? Now, Moon Day, or Monday, is going to hold the first day position of the week. And that is a coveted position, to have the first position. And that also gathers in all the people that have been giving sacred regard to the moon, whether they think so or not. Well, how and why? This is why we've already done this in 3391. The moon is connected to the words lunation, lunar, Luke, lux, and Lucifer. In fact, that moon is so strongly linked to Lucifer, it is Luciferian worship. Please don't shoot me. Not yet. So what is it going to be? Worship of the moon god or worship of the sun god? And we're going to pose this question in a future study too. Which one of these is of more danger between these two choices? The moon god or the sun god? Well, worship of the sun god is pretty serious. For the Sabbath keepers, they know Sunday is not Yahuah's day of worship. Like, they all know that. But most of them still don't know that sunset commencement for Sabbath is also part of sun worship as far as the beast and Yahuah are concerned. Lots of them don't know that. What about worship of the moon entity? Well, that's even very, very serious. Gazing at that moon for the purpose of worship. For those that want to honor Yahuah's Sabbath and festivals, they know the beast's feasts are a counterfeit of Yahuah's feasts. They already know that. But most of them still don't know that the moon month commencement for their feasts is also part of moon worship, as far as the beast and Yahuah are concerned. Sacred regard for any type of worship connected to the moon simply boils down to Luciferian worship. And we need to make this very clear. That doesn't mean that you cannot admire a beautiful full harvest moon. For the ordinances and whatever it does up there to bless your gardens or whatever, it's not talking about that. It's talking about worship and serve. The agenda, the beast's agenda. is to have the whole world in his hands through sun and moon worship. The beast is not dumb. The feasts of the beast and worship, the beast sun god worship, this is going to have anything connected to the sun, including Sunday, sunset, sunrise, sun everything. But I do want to make a point here. This is not connected to the sun with equinox, because equinox needs to have those 4 components, and sun is only one of them. This is talking about just the sun. The beast moon goddess worship includes anything connected to the moon, including the moon month, the new moon day, the full moon, moon everything. That's what
Charlene,
I'm finding. Yes.
I just want to remind people about the sun worship section. When you were watching the Tekufa, our backs are towards the sun and our eyes are on the ground watching the shadow. So we are not looking to the sun. It is not sun worship. She mentioned the 4 elements that it takes to cause the Tekufa. And we as humans are watching the shadow on the ground. And that goes along with James 1:17, where it says, there is no shadow of turning.
Absolutely. And this is probably a good point to review the 4 components. We always need review. The first major one is the Mazzaroth, or the constellations in the sky, the Mazzaroth. We need to have the sun, and it needs to give light. If you have no light from the sun because, smoke, smog, clouds or whatever, you aren't going to see what you need to see. You need to have light that comes from the sun, and you need to have the earth to receive the light and to show you the shadow. And as Tim said, you are not looking at the sun, you are looking at the ground. And I think you all remember that slide of the little boy looking at his shadow on the ground. It's not about equinoxes, far from it. But the beast has apostate worship covered on both the 1st and the 7th days of the week. The beast has it all figured out, because if we go to a calendar according to Rome with Sunday as the 7th day of the week, guess what? The Monday is just going to move up to the 1st day of the week, and there's your moon day. We're almost done. With others, do you want to know the truth about the moon? Then you shall know this truth, and it will make you free. When you see the whole study, you will understand why the moon component of the calendar study is so extremely serious. We want you to have this information. We want you to find the truth for Yahuah's covenant calendar. And what does all of this explosive information mean? Actually, I want to talk about this before I go on to the last few points. We're winding up here. I feel like tonight that I'm giving a presentation with dynamite in my belt. And you know, dynamite can be something for good, and it can be something for bad. And if you have to blow out a mountain, pass a mountain to get a road through so you can get from one side to the other, dynamite's a pretty good thing. But if you're using dynamite to bring down a building that's going to kill 3,000 people, that's not such a good thing. That's why I'm saying that this is an explosive presentation tonight, because it is dynamite. It is for good, though. You can take it for bad, but it is for good. What are we going to do with it? Just because there is a problem with some of the definitions in the lexical aids, that does not mean that we need to be fearful and throw everything out. Don't throw everything out. There are some good helps there, lots of them. Remember, the enemy's plan is to mix a little bit of error with mostly truth. And I'm here to tell you, if you're doing your study carefully between the pages of your scriptures with the Isaiah 28 principle of line upon line, you are going to find the problems in these lexical aids. You will find them. Yahuah will show you. For the Covenant Calendar Research Project, we are going to continue to use the study tools available to us with the guidance of the Ruach, and we're going to pay attention to Moses. However, if there seems to be a problem and the definitions aren't lining up, we are going to take our definitions back to Moses in the Torah. And you know what? It's still Torah, Torah, Torah. And it's about worshiping the creator of all things, of heaven and of earth. It's still about Torah and the creator. Well, in order for you to know the whole truth, we are also going to investigate 12 great leaders around these 20 new moon verses that are found in non-Torah books to see if these men actually taught from Torah or from other books. We're going to do an exhaustive study to find out what happened in these 20 new moon verses that all use 2320 Kodesh. And what's next? I just kind of told you. All 20 controversial verses in the non-Torah books using Kodesh as new moon will be investigated, and it's going to be broken open in part 6 of the Moon O' the Moon. I'm going to call it What Happened to Yahuah's Month. I hope that we can have that ready for September 7th and you'll all be here. I'm not sure how far we'll get through it because it's a lot of information, but that's coming up next. So everyone, you did well. We're done. And if you need any assistance or you want to send us an email, we have a new email address that has been set up by Neil in Australia. Address info@t4study.com. And there's the website if you want to have access to the calendar studies that we have been doing since the beginning of January. Thank you, everyone, and I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you again, Charlene.
I'm done.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wonderful teaching.
Oh.
Anybody have any questions and comments? I'm sure we have some. Well done.
We're going to be entering some very, very interesting information. And if you don't understand what is happening here with this definition, you may have difficulty with what's coming because
Boy, it's like
that statement where the Kodesh is not connected to a lunar month. You're going to see that I think it's around 80 some slides already. I can see it hitting 120 slides without any problem whatsoever. This is going to be rock solid proof that Yahusha identified the covenant calendar in Genesis 1, and it carried through the lives of all the patriarchs right on through. There's rock solid proof. Charlene, I want to thank you for putting this all together. There's some things that it said on this slide that I was too afraid to put on slides. Thank you for being brave enough to speak the truth. Yahuah bless you.
Absolutely. Stacy, did you have a question or comment?
Hello, everybody. Sorry for being late. I just wanted to know, Charlene, if you